Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Empowerment Tribe, where we're focusing on self-actualization and self-realization. In other words, self-empowerment. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Here's our topic for today. Guaranteed happiness. Here are the steps to that. And this follows the video that I did last week on lukewarm happiness, and I'll post that link right here. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Michelle For those of you who are new to my channel, I am the author of 11 published books, including Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness, The Integration of Body, Mind, Soul, and Spirit. I've been a yoga practitioner and yoga teacher since 2008. I've taught meditation since 2009 and Ayurvedic medicine since 2008. In addition to that, I've been preparing for my upcoming book, which I will reveal the title somewhere in the fall of 2024. So these principles of happiness, joy, are really part of what I'm writing about. And in that writing, I've been studying this book, the Dammapada. These are teachings of the Buddha. And so I'm going to be reading a little bit of that for you today. But let's start with a display quote. So here's the display quote from the Buddha, and it is, "There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way." There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. In fact, I had a tapestry sitting in my yoga studio for 10 years. And when I moved to California, I think I had it, but then I made a move last year. And I'm not sure if I got rid of the tapestry, but I was trying to find it so I could have it right behind me. But that quote has been staring at me for a very large part of my practice. Everybody seeks happiness. Everybody. It's just a common human goal. Misery is something we tend to be more familiar with, unfortunately. And in today's world, with all of the news that we have, with everything on social media, with the inundation of information that we have, because we are certainly in the information age, it's easy to get caught up in misery. It's very, 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 very easy to get caught up in misery because it's everywhere. Even if you try to avoid it, it's everywhere. It's absolutely, positively everywhere. And even if you go to your gym or you go to a bar or you go to watch some sports at a restaurant, there's crawlers with the bad news, the misery in the world. Even if you're watching a YouTube video, and unfortunately someone made a comment a few weeks back about how I should not have political advertising before or during my videos. And I was like, I have zero control over that. Google controls that based on your search history. But even on our YouTube videos, if we're trying to watch something positive or uplifting, sometimes we hit those ads that come before, in the middle, or at the end of the video, which bring about this air of misery. So it's really tough. It's an uphill climb, even though happiness, joy, are something that every single solitary human being is actually seeking. But I'm gonna give you the key today, and this is something I learned years ago when I was studying a lot of these spiritual concepts. It's something that I've been practicing, and it's something that, even though it's tough to practice, it's a really good reminder, even if you've heard this in the past, but you haven't really taken the steps to actually put it into practice. Here is how you guarantee happiness. 1, be happy where you are. In any given situation that you're in, be happy. Make the decision that you are going to be happy. And number 2, if it is impossible for you to be happy where you are, change your situation so that you may be happy. Now, we're not talking about first level happiness necessarily. Maybe we are. Maybe that's the case. For example, if someone suggests that you go get ice cream and you go to this ice cream place and the service is terrible and you're unhappy with the service at that ice cream place, sure, you can go choose another ice cream place instead of waiting in line to have terrible service. That's kind of first level happiness, right? But it's happiness nonetheless. I'm speaking more of profound joy. And of course, different factors of happiness stack in your life so that you can experience joy. So you can experience what we would call bliss in yoga circles, which that bliss is really freedom. It's moksha, according to Sanskrit. Moksha equals freedom, and freedom is really when you attain that bliss state. So we're talking about these bigger issues, which can come from smaller issues, certainly. For example, if you go to that same ice cream place and they have terrible service and you decide to stay, and then you get angry about it and you're upset about it the entire evening, then that can certainly lead into other areas of your life where your anger or your frustration filters into other aspects, such as yelling at your kids or your spouse, or going to work the next day and being really upset about the service you received the night before. And so it can certainly compound, right? Misery likes to compound as well as happiness compounds. But when I say to you that you have a decision, a choice to make in every moment of your life, it is true. It is absolutely, positively the truth. And those that realize that have a lot more liberation, moksha, have a lot more bliss and happiness. And bliss is ananda, I believe, in Sanskrit. It's been a while since I've studied Sanskrit, so give me a break for those of you that know Sanskrit much better. I did know 250 to 350 Sanskrit words that I had to memorize back in 2008, and I do use several of them, but it takes some time to recall, right? Recall sometimes. But when you truly realize that you have a choice in every moment of every day, you have a choice to choose happiness or to choose something else, which is going to bring you happiness, that is the utmost empowering secret that you could know. It is so incredibly empowering because you can have happiness if you choose to have happiness, even in the most dire and horrid and horrible situations. Some of you may know this and some of you may not. I've done an entire playlist on alcoholism recovery, the 12 steps. And I wrote a book called Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. I started doing this playlist because I was in a relationship with an alcoholic person, and I was giving videos to express certain aspects of my experience from the point of view of someone who has an alcoholic loved one. And I'm me, right? I am me. I have a tendency to look at things in an optimistic way. I tend to smile a lot. I tend to joke around a lot. That's just the way I am. However, you would not believe how many comments I used to get and still do get on the fact that alcoholism, recovery, being the loved one of an alcoholic is a very serious matter. It's very painful, and it is very painful. And you should not be smiling doing a video on this stuff. I've gotten tons of comments on that. And my response to that is, even in the hardest and most painful moments of your life, you can choose happiness. You can choose joy. It is a choice. You can choose to smile and laugh right through it and find the bright light in that darkness of the situation. Or you can sink deeper into anxiety, frustration, anger, and depression. You can wallow in that pity, that self-pity, and have a little pity party and be really upset. That is easy. That's really easy to do. The much harder path is to seek happiness in those difficult moments. And believe me, when I did those videos, especially between 2014, I'm not sure when the first video came out about alcoholism, addiction, and recovery, but when I did those videos between 2014 and 2018, I was still in that relationship. And so I was in it firsthand. I was in the trenches, guys. I was in the trenches, but I felt that it would be much more effective if I brought the material to those who were suffering from alcoholism or the families that were suffering because of an alcoholic loved one, or a spouse was suffering, or even kids. I did a few videos for kids whose parents are alcoholics. I can be a much more effective speaker if I'm speaking from the place of joy and serenity. And that shows that I have love and compassion for my viewer. And it wasn't because I was not suffering. It was because I chose to seek joy and happiness and bliss in the situation so that I could bring it to the viewers, to the people that really need it the most. They don't need someone to be miserable in their misery. They need someone to show them the path to joy. When I say to you that you can choose, I sincerely mean that. You can choose to be happy in every single solitary situation in your life. And if you can't find it within you to find the happiness in your situation, change it. Change the situation. I did a video a few months back when I first launched the change in subject on my channel, it's really not a change in subject. I speak about this type of thing all the time. Even when I was doing a ton of twin flame videos, I still speak about self-empowerment. And Jim Rohn, who was the teacher of Tony Robbins, had a quote from one of his lectures or books. I can't remember which one. I think I took it from one of his books that talked about this. If you want things to change for you, you must change. And I'll post that link to that video right here because it's true. It is so true. I cannot pound home how much this is true. I'm going to give you a couple of examples here first, and then I'm going to give you a warning on this topic because I think it's so important that you understand the warning here. I was talking with some friends this weekend, and one friend, he had a struggle with finding a job last year. I think it was maybe a year or 18 months in the making. He had a huge struggle with finding a job. And I remember him in that state when he was having trouble finding a job, and he used to talk about it all the time, how he didn't have the money and he couldn't go here. He just didn't have the money. He couldn't afford it. And that it was frustrating and depressing. And he was really upset about not having a job and looking for a job. And then after all of his months of searching and looking and being really upset and depressed about it, he got 2 jobs. And so now he's working 2 jobs. And he only has 1 day off a week, but he has 2 jobs. So he got what he wished for. And his friend, we're pretty close, he was complaining about the fact that he had to wake up really early in the morning to go to his second job. And I said to him, do you remember last year when you were crying practically because you didn't have a job and you didn't have the money? And now you're complaining because you have to wake up early for your second job? I almost wanted to say to him, you need to be happy where you're at. Like, be happy with the fact that you have 2 jobs, and what you really wanted last year and didn't have, you now have. But some people have a really hard time being happy where they're at. And you can tell because the thread is the same. The thread is exactly the same. You see this person who's not a bad person, really good person, it's all perspective. He was really unhappy having no jobs. And then when he got 2 jobs, he's feeling overwhelmed and kind of unhappy, even though he's happier. But it's still that common thread of you need to be happy regardless of your outside circumstances and situations. It's that the happiness comes from within. As the Buddha says, there is no pathway to happiness. Happiness is the way. Happiness is the way. And so whether you have $0 in the bank or $2 million in the bank, happiness comes from the inside place within you that is able to find it and keep it. The second example I'll give to you is another friend who is on the pathway to self-help, self-improvement. And we like to talk about various books on self-help, self-improvement. And it's quite fascinating, really, except for the fact that this particular friend, who tends to be very empathic and also who is a little more on the sensitive side, this is a man as well, his past has left him rather cynical. And so even though he's talking about self-help and self-improvement, there's always this level of cynicism attached to it, such as people are always trying to take advantage, or narcissists will always try to manipulate and control you. And I'm reading this book because I have to figure out how to stop that from happening. And so it's taking away from his happiness and joy in his personal development and self-help books, because he has not changed his mindset that he can certainly be happy, even if others out there on the outside are not going to change their behavior. Because if you haven't noticed, others don't typically change their behaviors for you. And so when you decide that it doesn't matter what my past looked like, it doesn't matter how many people took advantage of me, or how many people were not kind to me, or how many people out there are looking for people like me to take advantage of, my kindness, my niceness, or whatever it is, it has nothing to do with that. Other people will never change unless if they want to change. It's all about your internal dialogue. And if you choose to be happy and not let the concern of a possible future of someone maybe taking advantage of you in the future, not letting your day be ruined, your hour be ruined, your week be ruined by any of the external things that could potentially go wrong in your life, because your anchor point is yourself. Your anchor point is your inner joy, your inner peace, your inner happiness. Here's the warning. I promised you I would give you a warning. Here's your warning. This does not mean you're to be Pollyanna-like. I think that's the way you say that. Pollyanna-like means you go through life with the wool pulled over your own eyes, like you put the wool over your eyes, and you're just happy because you choose to be ignorant, or you choose to mask your own feelings that are less than happy. You see, you cannot put a Band-Aid over your negative emotions and pretend that you are happy. Now, sometimes if you're trying to talk yourself out of a bad mood, you can fake it till you make it. And that does work, by the way. It usually does work. I'm talking about those deeper emotions of real cynicism, for example, or real unhappiness, anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, blame, all of those things. And you're trying to just slap a little Post-it note on top of them that says happy, 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 happy. And meanwhile, you're really upset underneath, you're seething underneath, you're feeling guilty underneath, you're feeling shameful underneath, you're depressed underneath, and thinking like, I am going to just show or put on a happy face to others while I'm really suffering deep on the inside. That is not the case. Now, even I did mention, remember how I mentioned to you that as I was going through producing those videos on alcoholism, that I was suffering, but you need to remember that I was also going to Al-Anon, going to AA meetings to talk to other alcoholics. I was going through therapy myself. So I was doing all the things in the background to help me deal with those negative emotions while I was writing my book, while I was doing these videos. So it wasn't as if the happiness was fake. In other words, what I mean to say by that is you need to be authentic in your happiness when you're making the choice to be happy. Otherwise, you will not have guaranteed happiness, okay? We're talking about guaranteed happiness. Guaranteed happiness is being happy where you are or changing your situation so that you are happy. It's simple. It's hard to implement, wouldn't you say? It is so simple in concept. Sometimes it's really hard to implement. If you wake up day in and day out, day in and day out, every day, and you hate your job. Deepak Chopra, when I was listening to his CDs, yes, his CDs, it was back in the 90s, early 2000s. I was listening to his CDs, okay? And there was a study done, and I can't remember where the study came from. There was a study done, a medical study done, about the time of day where the most people have heart attacks. The time of day, the day of the week where most people have heart attacks is 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. No joke, no joke. They did statistics on this. They just wanted to know, when do people tend to have heart attacks? 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. What is that? People who hate their jobs. And so if day in and day out you hate going to work and you're upset about it, but you're like, I need the paycheck, I need to pay the bills. Right, but then are you miserable? Are you miserable? So if you can't find yourself in a happy place going to that job that you hate, then it's time to change the job. And you might be saying to me, Michelle, that's not easy to do. No, it's not easy to do. But would you rather spend 40 hours of your week being miserable, or would you rather spend 40 hours of your week being joyful? There is always another way. There's always another way. Now, it might behoove you to try to find the positive in the job that you're in, to grow where you're planted, if you will. Because if you have more of a negative mindset or a glass half empty type of mindset, because that's just your personality, some people do, you can try to find ways of appreciation or ways of gratitude in the job that you do have, and figure out, what can I like about this situation? What can I like about this job? What can I like and appreciate about my colleagues, my boss, the service or product that I do or sell? What can I find in this that can make me happy? And if you start by doing that, then when it's time for you to transition to another work, another job, another company, even another vocation, you will already have the muscle of choosing happiness. It'll be primed and pumped a little, if you will. It'll already be primed and pumped. Because like I said, you cannot go to another place and expect to be happy. This happened when I was married. And I know I talked a little bit about being married in the last video on lukewarm happiness, but this is a true story. This is a true story. I had a spouse who was glass half empty and who was innately unhappy. And when we made a move in 2005 from the US back to France, where his family was, I was mistaken because I thought that us moving there would help with his happiness factor. And I also thought that because it would help with his happiness factor, it might also help with the happiness factor in our marriage. False belief. I didn't know. So, of course, when we moved to France, he moved his unhappy self to France, and also we moved our unhappy marriage to France. So that's the way it goes. Your unhappiness kind of travels with you. And so when you make the choice to be happy, guess what? That also travels with you. I found this in the Dammapada. It's very short. I'm going to read it to you. And this reminds me, for those of you who know the prayer of St. Francis, if you grew up Catholic, like I did, and you know the prayer of St. Francis, this is very similar. The Dammapada was written, or these are like sayings of the Buddha, was written about 600 years BC. I think, because the Upanishads, which was the first teachings from India, the spiritual teachings that were finally written, this was all oral tradition, by the way, was about 1500 to 2000 years BC. And then the Buddha was born in India. I know a lot of people don't know this about the Buddha, but Siddhartha Gautama was Indian. And he was born around the Himalayas, close to Nepal. This book, of course, was written for the Buddha's teachings. I don't know exactly. It's been a while. I've been reading it, but it's been a while since I've read the beginning of it. The Buddha lived around 600 BC. So let me read to you. This is on joy. Let us live in joy, never hating those who hate us. Let us live in freedom without hatred, even among those who hate. Let us live in joy, never falling sick like those who are sick. Let us live in freedom without disease, even among those who are ill. Let us live in joy, never attached among those who are selfishly attached. Let us live in freedom, even among those who are bound by selfish attachments. Let us live in joy, never hoarding things among those who hoard. Let us live in growing joy like the bright gods. It goes on, but I think that was very telling as to this concept of choosing happiness, of choosing joy. And it's like the world around you is going to be the world around you. It has always been the world around you. And it will always be the world around you. Most often, we are waiting for others to change for us to be happy. We are waiting for that perfect relationship to be happy. We're waiting for that perfect job, for the entrance into the college or university we want to go to, or the degree program, the PhD program we've been trying to get into. We're waiting to be the right weight, or to have the right house, or the right car, or the right amount in our bank account. If you're viewing this in 2024, a lot of us are waiting for world peace, or we're waiting for the politics to get better, or for people to stop fighting, or for wars to stop. We're waiting for all of these things, and we think, if only the world could cooperate with my agenda, I would be happy. And this will never happen, not in a billion years, not in a trillion years. So for you to have guaranteed happiness, you must be able to choose to be happy now, regardless of all the externals, of all the circumstances, of all the people and the reasons why you feel that your life isn't where you need it to be as far as your happiness factor is concerned. And you will be guaranteed happiness because you get to choose. That's what empowerment is all about, guys. It's about getting to choose. When you feel empowered, you get to choose. When you feel disempowered, you feel like somebody else is choosing. Somebody else is not changing. Somebody is not choosing you. A job is not hiring you. Your mother is not stopping her negativity toward you. Your family is not going to stop being crazy. They're not going to stop arguing. They're not going to stop having different views than you. It's just not going to happen. And so when you realize that you are the designer of your own life, you are the co-creator of your own life. And as Wayne Dyer says, I believe it's from A Course in Miracles, I can choose peace rather than this. In other words, I can choose happiness rather than this. I don't have to choose despair. I don't have to choose my grievances. I don't have to choose those disturbing feelings and thoughts. I don't have to. I can feel them, certainly, as you should. Like I said, you don't want to put the Post-it notes, happy, 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 over those negative emotions, because those negative emotions are going to come out and it's going to be fake. You don't want to be fake. You want to be authentic. But the more you practice this, the more you practice being happy or choosing the situation which is going to make you happy, it's going to click. I promise you, it will click. And you are going to be so much better. And when you are so much better, that joy, that happiness is going to spread to others. And guess what? Others will be so much better because they will see how happy you are in your choices, or your choices to be happy, that they will act differently with you. They will react differently with you because you can't get your feathers ruffled when you're happy. It's just things roll off your back when you're happy, right? So guaranteed happiness. The Buddha from 2,500 years ago, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Choose wisely, choose happiness, and you will be guaranteed to live a better life. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with others who could use a little bit of self-empowerment. And thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can buy one of my 11 published books. You can donate on Patreon. All the links are below. And I will see you in the next video.